Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to speak Korean to your close friends. So far, all of the Korean that we've been learning so far has just been polite speech, 존댓말. This is because it's always better to be a bit too polite and therefore potentially a bit awkward than it is to be too casual and therefore rude. With close friends who are the same age as you or younger, you can also use casual speech. This is known as 반말. So here's the basic way to make your speech casual. Simply conjugate a verb as usual, but without adding the yo to the end. And without using any honorific speech about the person who you're talking with, or humble speech about yourself. This also applies to nearly all of the grammar forms that we've learned, and we'll cover a few common exceptions in this lesson. So before we give some examples of that, let's talk about how you can say I. And you'll want to use the word 나, meaning I or me, instead of 저. Here are some examples of that. If you have 나 plus the marker 에, you get either 나에 or 네. If you have 나 plus the subject marker 가, this becomes 내가. 나 plus the topic marker 는 becomes either 나는 or 난. And if you have 나 plus the object marker, you get either 나를 or 날. So next, let's talk about how you can say you to the person who you're speaking casually with. If you're talking with someone who's the same age as you or younger, you have two options. First, you can just use their name. If their name ends in a consonant, however, attach E to the end. For example, you can talk about your friend Minu as just Minu, and your friend Baekhyun as Baekhyun-이. Or you can also use the word 너 to mean you. However, be very careful. Using 너 can sound like you're speaking down to someone, so only use it in very close relationships. Otherwise, it can sound quite rude. With close friends who are older than you, use what we've already learned. This includes using their title, such as 형, 오빠, 누나, and 언니, or you can directly ask them what they'd like to be called. So let's talk a little bit more about how you can use the word 너 to mean you, and here are some of the most common combinations that you'll see for 너. If you have 너 and the particle 에, you can get either 너에 or 네. However, since this would sound the same as 내, meaning my, this word is actually more often pronounced as 니, although it's still spelled as usual. If you have 너 and the subject marker 가, you get 내가. However, this would also sound the same as 내가, so this is more often pronounced as 니가, although that doesn't affect the spelling. If you have 너 plus the subject marker 는, you can have either 너는 or 넌. And if you have 너 plus the object marker, you can either get 너를 or 널. We previously learned the words 네 and 아니요 to say yes and no, but when you're speaking casually, there are different words to say yes and no. So let's look at what those are. So first, to say yes, you can use 응. This means 네, yes. You might also find used more often than 응. Next, to say no, use 아니. This means the same thing as 아니요, but is casual. In addition, the verbs 이다 to be and 아니다 to not be have different conjugations in casual speech. 이다 will become either 이야 after a consonant or 야 after a vowel. For example, 밥이야 or 김치야. 아니다, however, will just become 아니야. For example, 빌리가 아니야. Next, let's talk about the object marker. In casual speech, the object marker can be dropped to help make speaking faster and easier. However, only do this when the meaning of the sentence is still clear. For example, 저는 요즘 한국어를 공부하고 있어요. Or 저는 요즘 한국어 공부하고 있어요. These days I'm studying Korean. In fact, it's also okay to drop the object marker in these situations when speaking politely. However, know that dropping the object marker often will make your Korean sound less formal and sometimes too slangy. So we previously learned the way to say let's do something by using the adverb 같이 and the 요 form. Well, when you're speaking casually, you have one additional option, 자. Here's how to make it. Attach 자 after an action verb stem. This means let's do verb. For example, 저녁 먹으러 가자. Let's go eat dinner. 조금 더 공부하자. Let's study a little bit more. 같이 놀자. Let's hang out together. And here's one more trick. To make commands whenever you're not speaking honorifically or extra politely, you can also just use the verb conjugated as usual, as you would when making a sentence. For example, an honorific way to make a command could be 빨리 하세요, do it quickly, or 빨리 해주세요, please do it quickly. An informal way to make a command could be 빨리 해요, do it quickly, or 빨리 해줘요, please do it quickly. And a casual way to make a command could be 빨리 해, do it quickly, or 빨리 해줘, please do it quickly. Remember that using the 으세요 form will still sound much more polite than just the regular 요 form. But feel free to use the other forms with close friends. So let's take a look at an example conversation between two close friends who are also the same age as each other, 지수 and Jenny. First, 지수 says, 어제 리사 만났어? Yesterday, did you meet Lisa? 아니, 안 만났는데. No, I didn't meet her. 왜? Why? As in, why are you asking? 리사가 요즘 내 전화 안 받아. Lisa recently isn't answering my phone calls. Literally, 전화를 받다 means to get the phone, and it means that someone answers the phone. 정말? Really? 3일 전에 나랑 통화했는데. She talked with me on the phone 3 days ago. 좀 이상하지 않아? Yeah, isn't it a little strange? 우리 지난달에 만났을 때 혹시 문제가 있었어? When we met last month, by chance was there a problem? Or was there by chance a problem when we met last month? 몰라. I don't know. 그냥 바빠서 내 전화를 안 받고 있을까? Could she not be answering my phone calls because she's just busy? 그냥 is an adverb that means just or just as it is, or even nothing special. It should not be used in any sort of formal speech.
어제 리사 만났어? 아니, 안 만났는데. 왜? 리사가 요즘 내 전화 안 받아. 정말? 3일 전에 나랑 통화했는데. 응, 좀 이상하지 않아? 우리 지난달에 만났을 때 혹시 문제가 있었어? 몰라. 그냥 바빠서 내 전화를 안 받고 있을까?
So in this lesson, we learned how to make casual speech as well as several other grammar forms used in casual speech. So practice everything from this lesson and I'll see you again in the next lesson. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.